Good morning. Welcome to those of you watching live on the MintTwist YouTube channel. Welcome to MintTwist headquarters in London. We'll be starting the workshop in about 10 minutes time. So see you at 11 a.m. UK time.
course.
Anyway. Can I get either of you a coffee or a tea?
I'm okay for it. Can I have a water, please?
Of course you can, yeah. This is still that sparkling.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi
there. It's
Ross. Nice to meet you.
It's Mark. Nice to meet you.
I'm Madison.
Ross.
Hello.
I'm just gonna.
I'm from Chalk Line, so we do alright.
Oh, you're short line?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you're in this place? Oh, you've not been
No,
here?
I've not been here myself, but I know a couple of the guys have.
Yeah.
No, it's cool here.
Have you heard the story of our office?
Harry's told me a few times. Is it Jay-Z?
Jay-Z's
Yeah.
company, yeah.
Very cool.
So Rock Nation, which is Jay-Z's record company, had their European headquarters here in this building.
Can of water. We look after can of water as well.
Sorry?
We look after can of water.
Oh, you do, yeah? Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Okay. How are they doing? They're a
Very
relatively
good.
new brand, I guess.
Yeah, the boys actually went to my school, so we know them quite well. But yeah, they started. They started quite small, and they're getting loads of endorsements from everywhere now, at all the big events. So it looks like they're doing pretty well.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It's like forms a talking point every time people come to our office because that can is like it's an intelligence test trying to open it, isn't it? Most people fail it.
I've actually never had one.
They seem to have reverted to the regular pool things.
Very cool.
Yeah, so that's the white one's still, the black one's sparkling.
Perfect.
So take your. So neither of you wanted a coffee or a tea or anything? Okay, all right.
I'm fine with the water.
All right. So I think we've got a few more people that are supposed to be coming. I think another 4. But what we'll do is we'll just make a start anyway. Maybe before I introduce myself, just in case anyone comes a bit later, I'll if it's okay, you guys can start. You can introduce yourselves. Just tell us a bit about who you are, and I guess it would be nice to hear sort of the marketing objectives that your organisations are looking at, so we can tailor the conversation to make it as specific as possible. So who you are, a bit about yourself, and then what you're looking to get up today, I guess, really. Nicolette.
I can start. So my name is Nicolette. I'm working for AMX. So you just
cool.
She just designed the new website for us.
How long have you been there?
I started 8 months ago. So basically, I'm like a team assistant supporting the marketing, the change, and the technology team. So I'm doing like different kind of things, and I'm doing my master's degree in marketing communication at the same time.
Brilliant.
So I'm like keeping busy. So it's more like the B2B market basically with asset management, different funds. So it's what we're doing is a bit more tailored towards the people, like really specific, like who we're going after, who are the clients who we want to get into the business. So basically the social media, what we're doing is really specifically targeted.
Yeah, absolutely. So Willis Towers Watson is the parent company, and it's an enormous financial services company, I guess, global. And you built out this great platform that's sort of an app-based, manage your own portfolio. And I think if I remember rightly from last time I saw Orla Kelly, who I guess is your boss.
Yes.
Yeah, very nice lady. So that she said to me that the main strategy was to convert users of the traditional platforms to try and move them on to the new platform. Is that still the...
Yeah, so basically we're trying to get them to move to the portal as well, to do the transactions and all sorts of stuff on the portal. But we're still doing a lot of work on the portal. And now that the new website is done, so we try to reflect it to have like the same kind of branding and the same kind of look for the portal as well. It's still a lot of work on the portal.
Okay, so in terms of the social media channels, how much have you done on them thus far?
I haven't done much. It's my colleague Robert who was there.
Right, okay. No, but I mean, so the AMX themselves,
they do mostly LinkedIn.
Right,
and
okay.
a bit of Twitter.
Okay.
But that's the main channel what they're using.
Yeah, and is it organic? Is it organic posting, or are they doing advertising?
No, they started to do the advertising as well.
Okay, all right, cool. Thank you, Colette. Let's continue around the room.
Shall I go now?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so my name's Itamar, and I was working at MintTwist since last June until this April, and now I'm freelancing, so I'm a specialist in SEO and video marketing, it's a fairly quick introduction. I'm also going to be helping with the live on YouTube for this session, so any kind of questions that get brought up, I'll try and communicate that on behalf of the internet, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
I'm Madison. I'm interning at MintTwist. I'm studying here from Washington, D.C. is where I'm from. But yeah, I'm here for the summer. I'm studying advertising and business at school, so I'm just here to learn, and I'll be posting some updates on our Twitter, so see me doing that. I'll do.
That's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
How are you finding London so far?
I love it here so far. It's been definitely a change, but I like it a lot.
Yeah.
I'm Ross. I work at Chalkline, so we're an IT services provider. We do the IT for you guys here. I'm not from a marketing background. I do like business development and account management, and we're trying to like get ourselves out there more, as you guys probably know, on social media, on the internet. We are doing frequent LinkedIn posts, Twitter, Instagram where appropriate, and generally speaking, have you met David? So David and I are generally out of the office quite a lot, so we're the ones that are at events and we're taking the pictures and posting them on LinkedIn. So it's quite good for me to know like what the types of things we should be posting on which platform, and also because we're trying to do as much as we can internally, I'd like to know what's going on and where I should be posting.
Good stuff. And in your sort of role as business development person, do you use LinkedIn much when you've got sort of meetings and stuff? Yeah.
So I use LinkedIn a lot for prepping the meeting firstly, looking at who I'm meeting, the company, if they've got any experience with people that I know or common connections. But I'm also trying to like build up a personal brand as well. So I'm doing posts, not always business related, but gets a bit of interaction. So we're trying to do that as well, which is good.
Yeah, good stuff. Just what on that point, I think, I'm not sure, we may or may not talk about it in the session, but a lot of people talk about influencer marketing, and obviously it's a big thing. But I think particularly for business development people, and I'm not sure if your role you're going to be customer facing, but any form of customer facing person, account manager, business development person, you're actually an ambassador and an influencer for your organization. And having some form of personal brand, if it's B2B, LinkedIn, if it's B2C, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, it's definitely a value add, obviously for yourself, but also for the organization. And it's something that I think is becoming sort of more widely understood. When you go and meet a prospective client, you're representing your business, and your LinkedIn profile and your online profile is obviously a big part of that. And it would be the same for you if you're presenting internally or externally to partners and potential partners and potential customers and so on and so forth. So the concept of influencer marketing, is relevant to increasingly to more of us. It's not just something that celebrities do. Okay. All right. So let me introduce myself then. So my name's Elliot King, and I am the CEO and co-founder of MintTwist. MintTwist is a full-service digital agency working with a range of medium and large-sized clients, very often in the financial sector. We're good with B2B businesses, as with Chalkline is one as well. We've got significant experience of working in higher education sector with universities as well. So full service digital means we are full service. So we do everything from design, development to search engine marketing, search engine optimization, social media marketing, and paid digital advertising. So that means Google AdWords, also means social advertising across all of the channels. Our approach to everything we do is we're very much a partner of our clients. A lot of agencies will say that, but we're genuinely a partner of our clients, and we're genuinely looking to transfer knowledge into our clients. So that's built into the service, but workshops like this are kind of all part of the service. And we think that's important because increasingly people like yourselves, and I think the two of you are prime examples, you're going to be digitally savvy people. And we believe that the more that you understand, the better you can be for your organisations, and therefore the better agency partner we can be to your organisations. Okay, so as we go through this course, I've got some slides up here, but they're very much just guidance for us to sort of move around. So there's only a few of us here, so I would encourage questions. That includes Itamar, Madison. Throw questions out. Let's make this as interactive as we possibly can. Itamar touched on this earlier on. We've been running these workshops for about 8 or 9 years now. Just the last few months, we've just started to live stream these. So this is live streaming over YouTube at the moment. It's my face on the screen, so you don't need to be camera shy. It's not. We're not looking at you guys. It's primarily the slides at the top corner, and it's me. There's a limited number of viewers because the YouTube channel for MintTwist is relatively new. But for those of you who are online, if you've got any questions, if you fire them away, Itamar, who's in the room, will make sure they get answered. The majority of people will probably be watching this after it's gone live, but that's okay as well. Okay, let's make a start then. So we've kind of we've been round the room and asked who you are and what your business objectives. So we'll move on from that. First of all, let's just talk a little bit about. Let's just give a little bit of a quick intro here. So social media in the context of marketing. So are both of you familiar with marketing funnel? That concept? Yeah, so marketing funnel is at the top of the funnel, we've got potential customers. At the bottom of the funnel, we've got actual customers. And the job of marketing is primarily about moving potential customers through a process of becoming aware of what we do. So Willis Towers Watson, a lot of people will be aware that you're a big financial company that provides lots of services. A huge number of them won't be aware of the Amex brand because it's relatively new. So initially, we've got to make them aware. How do we get them to actually come and have a conversation with us about getting on the platform? Well, we need to do some marketing here that convinces them of the value of doing that, because otherwise they might be aware that you exist, but if they don't understand the purpose, then what's the point? There would be a similar conversation you would have with potential customers that would move their IT support, because most people have an IT support function in place already. So marketing is about motivating change in the minds of our potential customers. So at the middle of the funnel is consideration, and these words are kind of, every company has their own words here. You can change the words, but really it's the process of motivating change and ultimately action for the customer to actually buy from us, or commit to having a serious conversation about buying from us. And it's obviously a funnel because typically you're speaking to more people at the top. This is your entire potential audience, and this is at the bottom, it's just our actual customers. And so it's always going to be larger at the top. There's when we talk about social media marketing, for me, again, there's lots of in marketing. There's lots of different names, but there's this. I like this one called the RICE model. So right at the top of the funnel, we want to. It's awareness, as we said, and we've got to reach people. So if people don't even know we exist, how can we do that? And social media is certainly a tool that we can use to reach potentially large amounts of people. Talking about that in just a moment. Once we've reached them and we've created that awareness in the minds of our potential customer, it's then about influencing them. And as we said, this is not just get the celebrity. This is in the broader sense, influencing that change or that decision that we need to engage the customer. And then conversion tactics. So these two sort of fit together. If you think about it, for someone to make a change, for a potential customer to make that change, to move to actually potentially buy something from us, we really, if we've got a tangible way of helping that to happen, then that's going to help us significantly. So let me throw out the question. So how do you, what is the event that happens that enables you to potentially get a customer?
In terms of like the social engagement, it would be, I guess, like the point where we would call that prospect or that potential customer would be if they have downloaded a white paper or they've clicked on the, clicking for more information, because that's when we know we've kind of grabbed their attention, and we monitor how long they've been on each area as well. I would say probably that.
Yeah. So once they've downloaded a white paper, do they share their contact details?
Yeah, they would need to do that in order to download the paper.
So that's brilliant.
That's a good engagement area for us.
Perfect. So that's a perfect example of a conversion tactic. So we provide some valuable white paper, they provide their contact details, then it's over to the sales team in the case of your business to take. So that's a converted qualified, it's a converted lead.
Yeah.
It's probably quite far from a sale.
Yeah.
But in your business model, that's probably that's great. It's then off to the salesperson. It's not an e-commerce checkout. So your awareness marketing is Chalkline is an IT support company. Your influencer marketing is download our white paper because it's really good. And so if that works, that this has happened. Your tactic is triggered.
Mm-hmm.
Do you IMX have a
Right.
Anyway. Yes.
Elliot, quick point for the live stream. Could you try and put it on full screen by any chance, just so I can see if the screen, because it's cut off slightly on the recording. So we've got Joe Metcalf asking to put the presentation on live stream.
See if this works. It's possible that it might not work. So
yeah,
we're
I'm just
triggering
the point now because there's a slight delay. Sorry, but just for the people watching who aren't here.
Okay, if that works, great. If it
I'll
doesn't,
let you know.
Yeah.
I'll let you know as soon as it's updated.
Okay, cool. So we understand. And then engagement marketing. This again, it does depend on the organisation, but this is an engaging and already an existing, not necessarily only existing customers, but existing audiences. If people are connected with what we're doing, we're marketing to people who are already, engaged in what we're doing, and we want to nurture that engagement. There's different types of content at different points in the funnel. Okay. So when we talk about social media, on the very top level, there's kind of two sort of ways of looking at it. One is social media advertising, and the other is so-called organic social media. Okay. So social, as a kind of general rule of thumb, social media advertising is an incredibly efficient way of creating awareness amongst potential customers that don't currently know us and we don't currently know them. It's the reason why it's so effective at doing that is because we can describe what our customers look like from a demographic and geographic perspective. So if AMX know that its customers, or one of the target customer groups might be fund managers, or that.
Different asset managers, investors.
Yeah. So you've got different customer profiles, but if one profile was, let's say, private investors who had, let's say, net worth of, £1 million plus, just for example, and let's say we described them as individuals that, live in the UK and Europe and are between the ages of 40 and 55. Let's just say that was one segment. Obviously, I understand you must have many more. If we understood that those people were potential customers, then using the social media advertising platforms, we're able to reach those individuals even though we don't know who they are and we don't have their contact details. And we're able to do that because of, obviously, Facebook's, LinkedIn, Twitter, they all have it, Google. Their ad platforms allow us to target people based on demographics, interests, job title, salary, and many other things. And for that reason, social media advertising is a very efficient way of reaching audiences first. And if we do it well, if we do it successfully, we create awareness in the minds of potential customers. The organic social media stuff, if you think about it, if you post something organically, just by the nature of what you're doing, when you're posting, you're out and about at your events that I know that you and David go to, and you're posting pictures and you're talking about awards that you win, it's brilliant, but you're speaking to your network. It's not but, it's great. You're speaking with your network. So people like me see that you win an award and I engage with your content and say, great, fantastic, David, well done. And that's a great way of engaging with potential, existing customers, which we are, but also the network of potential existing customers. Because when you engage me with content, if I like and engage with your content, the way that social media networks work is that my network then get to see my comments about Chalkline or my comments about AMX. So you do still get a reach effect, but it's obviously it's a function actually of how engaging your content is. The more engaging it is, the more successful it will be in earning reach of your existing network. Yeah.
I've got 2 points. One on yours, but also the screen's frozen, audio's fine, so maybe it's better to go back to the previous view, even if it's cut off slightly. Just so that people...
We're using an OBS streaming software that tracks windows, and I think once you go to full screen on the PowerPoint, it's going to fall away.
Maybe if you could zoom out slightly on the slides at the bottom right, there might be a way to zoom out the slides slightly, and then that might make it so that people can see it clearly on the view. It's always a bit tricky like this, but that's OBS. Yeah, maybe that. Try and leave it like that. That might be good, actually. I'm just gonna wait and see. But the point you made is really good, I think, about, you talk about organic social media, and it's something that a lot of companies don't really leverage too much. And also choosing specific types of social media platforms and knowing how to interact with customers and your prospective customers, because not everyone wants to be communicated the same way on all platforms, because you're not going to speak to someone on LinkedIn as you would on Twitter. So it's really important that your core messaging is thought through, and that you're planning it before you start actually posting on social media, because that's very important as well to keep in mind. And I mean, we should be okay. Let me see what the chat is saying.
Okay.
I think I think we'll just keep it like this. You're not frozen at the moment, so I mean, I guess we'll be fine. If anyone has any questions, just on anything that Elliot's saying, feel free to just ask on the live chat, and we'll get that communicated. Yeah.
So social media marketing for reach and engagement. Let's talk about this then. So as we said, at the top of the funnel, social media marketing can create awareness. It's very good at creating awareness at the top of the funnel. At the bottom of the funnel, towards the bottom of the funnel, we can use it to engage constituents, so people connected with us, directly or indirectly. So let's just use an example, like love her or hate her. She's a great example for using on social media, because I find when I run workshops, everyone knows who she is. So this is obviously Kim Kardashian, and she's obviously running a personal brand that's also essentially a business brand. So when she creates awareness content, it's all about how can she create the biggest amount of reach. So she will tend to create quite extreme poses. So this one with the popping the champagne and having the sort of inflated sort of backside, I think the campaign was even called Break the Internet. So how many views and clicks and shares can she get? And obviously she gets millions. So when she creates this type of content, if she's out of the news for too long, she'll just dye her hair blonde, and then obviously all the chat gossip magazines are talking about what she's dyed her hair blonde. And this type of content is entirely aimed at creating mass media, mass consumption. So that's awareness type content. When she's sort of engaging with her audiences, or fans as she would call them, this is kind of engagement stuff. This is going to an event, taking selfies with people who are following her, going to sign autographs, stopping in the street and taking selfies with friends. This type of content understands that the Kim Kardashian brand won't allow someone to take a selfie of her and just post it anywhere they want. There is a certain amount of curation that goes on even with this type of stuff. So she's known to have, if a photo doesn't look good with a fan of hers, she will ask them to take it again so that it looks good, so that when it does go out, it looks right, it's on brand. But she doesn't mind creating this type of content because you can do all of the awareness stuff you want, but without the engaged fan base, a brand like that doesn't really work. And the lessons, are clear for Kim Kardashian, but they're also relevant for almost any type of organization. There's going to be a material difference between the type of content you put out to create awareness versus the type of content you put out to create engagement. Just a sort of short note then, I guess, on the platforms. There's obviously a lot of platforms out there, and these are, some of them, they're not all of them. From a UK perspective, this slide is talking about, from a UK perspective, on Facebook, there are 32 million users. So that's over half the population. There are 20 million users on Twitter. So Twitter as a network tends to lean itself very well towards like journalists, politicians, people in the media. So a lot of marketing people will look at Twitter as a resource to engage politicians. So if you're an organization that engages heavily in PR, then engaging, meaning actually connecting with relevant journalists that might cover your industry sector, and it kind of makes sense, because if you're creating newsworthy content, you want those people in your network, and potentially you even want to engage with them directly on those sorts of platforms. Just backing up a little bit, Facebook. Facebook's obviously heavily used, not exclusively, but heavily used by B2C businesses for obvious reasons. It's a network where pretty much everyone's on. Interestingly enough, marketers will start to look at that as the network. Is it, if we want to go after like slightly older consumers, they would still be, that audience is particularly loyal to Facebook. If we come along to, well, let's just jump to Instagram. We've just been talking about Facebook. So Instagram, most people will know, is owned by Facebook. So Facebook owns Instagram. Instagram, at the moment in the UK, has a lower number of users, but is the fastest growing of the main networks. So user growth and usage growth on that channel is particularly high. It tends towards the slightly younger audience. So younger audiences will be more active on Instagram. Relatively older audiences will be more active on Facebook. So if we go back again then to Pinterest. So does anyone in the room use Pinterest? Madison?
Sometimes.
Colette?
I've seen it, I don't use it.
The interesting thing is Pinterest has an enormous slant towards women, an enormous slant. It's obviously shown that it's 80% female. What do you use it for, Madison?
Looking up recipes.
Right.
Crafts.
Yeah. So you pin pictures, and it's supposed to be about inspiration, isn't it? So that's the idea of it, and it kind of inspires new ideas. Pinterest is rolling out its advertising tools, and marketers are increasingly looking at Pinterest as a place where they can market their products and services. LinkedIn, 19 million users, between 30 and 49, but obviously it goes outside of that range as well. But the key thing about LinkedIn is obviously it's considered the business social media network. It's still a personal, it's still a network for individuals, and we touched on it a bit at the start. But it's a heavy slant towards business, which makes it very interesting for any company that's running B2B advertising of any kind. Obviously, YouTube sitting here is the big video platform. YouTube is owned by Google, so Google's able to cross-reference its kind of demographic targeting data that it obtains from users using its other services, Gmail, search, and others. And YouTube is a very interesting platform because it's also growing very fast. It's extremely highly used by younger age groups, and YouTube is very likely to be a very big player going forward. Within the Alphabet group, which is the group that owns Google, this is the fastest growing platform. And yeah, YouTube's going to be very interesting going forward. So Snapchat on the end here, traditionally has been a very popular platform amongst younger users and still is. Over the last year and a half, it's come under a lot of pressure from Instagram. So Instagram's to some extent stealing its growth, meaning younger people, as in children, really, are increasingly looking at Instagram, where 5 years ago, if you were a 13-year-old teenager, you would be looking at Snapchat exclusively, potentially. One of the main reasons for that is Instagram have been very good at taking the components of that platform that have worked very well, mainly its stories. So Instagram stories has been a great success, but that was obviously, for those of you who don't know, that was the fundamental feature that drove Snapchat. Is that right? Am I right in saying that? I'm not a Snapchat user.
No, you're right. But I think also with stories, I feel like that's an aspect of that kind of started with Snapchat and was very popular. But it seems as if like most social networking, social media platforms are kind of just copying it in their own way, because we've had Instagram kind of take that over. There's like Twitter mentions or moments, even Twitter moments, which is fairly similar. But even YouTube recently have introduced stories as well, which is a really interesting feature, and I've never used it, and it just seems like everything's become a lot more boring because everyone's kind of doing the same.
And WhatsApp do it as well, and Facebook.
Yeah, WhatsApp.
Do WhatsApp do stories? I didn't know that.
WhatsApp do stories as well.
Everything related to Facebook does it, and they kind of took it from Snapchat, and now YouTube's doing it. So it's like what next?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So before we go on then, so what sort of mix of channels do you currently use at AMX?
LinkedIn and Twitter.
LinkedIn and Twitter. And do you use them in different ways? Or?
At the moment it's more LinkedIn. So I think Twitter there is some more work on that, but it's in a different way.
Okay, yeah. And so do you have an idea about what you're hoping to achieve with LinkedIn? Or is it about sharing content with your network? Or
I think it's a different kind of things, but it's usually not from a colleague perspective.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And you, Ross, what channels do you guys use?
We use Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, again Instagram. Instagram mainly for, like, as an example, if we have a company social or we go to an event, we'll post on there because it's not like the professional kind of network. It's more chilled out, just to show that we like computers, but we also go out as well and have fun. So yeah, it's mainly LinkedIn, I'd say. We get quite a lot of traction there where we do. The best part of it is because you have like a wide audience, and if someone likes it, it goes to their network as well, and that's where we get most likes and comments.
Okay, so there's a couple of points you made that are very good there. So one, you're using LinkedIn, and Nicolette is using LinkedIn as well, because it's where a lot of your target audiences are, which is great. You mentioned that if someone engages with your content on LinkedIn, then you get that extended reach onto their network, which is absolutely right. If a post on LinkedIn is liked by someone who is following you, then that post will be exposed to the feeds of the people who follow that person. So LinkedIn is a great way to get that sort of earned, that earned reach, that earned media.
How many people? So if I've got a connection, so you're a first connection with me, and then you like it, does it reach your second and third? How does it work?
I've got past it Itamar for that. I'm pretty sure it reached my first level connections. I'm not sure about second level.
Definitely first. I'm not really sure about second and third. It could be maybe, for the algorithm's sake, it could potentially be if it's really relevant in terms of like the type of industry that you're working in. Don't quote me on that, but definitely first. And I think, in essence, that's most of the time that would be the most important thing, I'd say, because the people in your first connections, more likely you accept people who are within the similar industry as you. So it's like whatever engagement that they have on your post on LinkedIn, that's going to be shared to people of similar industries, and so that's often a great way to kind of branch out and reach targeted people without even knowing that they exist in a way. But that's how I'd see it. And we've also got a question, speaking of these platforms, about this is addressing to you, Elliot. Which platform is the most underused by businesses in 2019, do you think?
I think it's a fantastic question. Obviously the boring answer is it depends on your business, but the sort of the direct answer for me is LinkedIn is a relatively underused platform. There's an organisation, it's a US organisation called Social Media Examiner, and they produce the social media industry report, and we'll put a link to that in the notes of this file. And the report was out very recently, so it was about 6 weeks ago. And they're finding that there's historically Facebook has been the big daddy of digital advertising, and obviously Google AdWords. And those two have been the big daddies of it's where all the dollars have gone, basically, in the US, but in the UK and other places. And I think there's been, just because they've been so big, digital marketers and marketers inside, particularly sort of brand, client-side brands, will kind of gravitate to one or both of those two channels. And as a result, platforms like LinkedIn, and like YouTube, and to some extent Twitter, have sort of been a bit ignored. And what that's meant is, because all of these are marketplaces and the cost per clicks are driven by the competition, it's meant that there's relatively reduced competition on those platforms that I mentioned, in particular LinkedIn, and to some extent, YouTube, if you know how to use it. So the short answer for me is LinkedIn at the moment. Some people will tell you that the cost per click on LinkedIn is high, and that is true, but the cost per conversion, if you've got analytics correctly set up, is strong for LinkedIn. Obviously, it's not going to be particularly relevant for some B2C players, but for those people who it is relevant for, I would say LinkedIn. For B2C players, it would be YouTube, where the cost per views are exceptionally low. For the same reason, there's still relatively reduced competition on YouTube. The thing about video is it's very difficult with YouTube advertising to get people to click off YouTube. So YouTube is very much about an awareness play. Now you could be clever with remarketing audiences and then remarket on a platform, like Facebook or Google Display. But yeah, short answer: B2B LinkedIn, B2C YouTube.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think because I would say that on the whole, I think YouTube is underused because of its potential, but at the same time, there's so many aspects within LinkedIn that companies don't really seem to address, if that makes sense. Because I mean, when on my personal LinkedIn, all I kind of see the value of it for a lot of people, from my experience, is people just trying to sell me their services or just add me to a network and trying to sell me something. But I don't really see too many company updates on LinkedIn, and that's an aspect that's really important because I feel like LinkedIn are noticing that there are certain aspects of their platform that aren't really being utilized, like groups. Groups used to be a thing. Now no one really uses LinkedIn. I don't know if you guys are in any LinkedIn groups, but that's something that's been kind of dead for the last couple of years. But also with the company updates, and what I'm gonna assume is that LinkedIn are seeing these statistics and they're gonna say, okay, we need a way to boost up businesses who are posting on their updates for their company pages, and the same thing maybe potentially with groups later down the line. So I think that definitely making updates from your company's page on LinkedIn and then using that and then sharing it on your own personal account, that might be more favorable nowadays in terms of LinkedIn's algorithm, I think. So that's why I agree that LinkedIn, there's so many features in it that people just don't, or businesses rather, don't seem to quite be taking advantage of.
Yeah, there's plenty of opportunities, and as always with social media, experimentation, is key, particularly if we're talking about advertising. Oops, sorry.
Yeah, we've got a comment from Menzies LLP saying that groups have been going through a revamp in the last 6 months to improve their integration with users, and I completely agree. Definitely one of the most underused features of LinkedIn. So definitely they're going to try and kind of kick it back up again, make it more lively. But yeah, good comment. Thank you.
Okay, so let's have a look at trends then. So trends across the social media platforms. So one thing to understand, and I'm sure most people do, social media is inherently mobile. So some years ago, people would have talked about mobile advertising. If you want to reach people, as sometimes we do, specifically when they're on a mobile platform, first of all, 80% of usage of social media is on a mobile platform. Second of all, if we're talking about advertising, you can actually target the platforms, and you can say, I only want my media to reach people who are on a mobile device. So it excludes desktop devices. So for certain types of campaigns, you would want to hit people when they're on the go. So if we're talking about any kind of geolocation-based advertising, which is a feature that many of the platforms allow, then that would be a good example of something where you want to make sure all of the media is consumed on a mobile device. Instagram, as we said, is fastest growing. Video is a mega trend. I think, is it Mark Zuckerberg, who talks about video being a mega trend across?
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg, he's revolutionized social media, social networking, and video is definitely something that he personally tries to get involved with. I know that he does a lot of kind of live streams on Facebook, which automatically get shown to anyone using Facebook because they just programmed it that way. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but it sounds like something.
It's a quote attributed to him talking about. So video is on the rise. The platforms are bending over backwards to incorporate video, and obviously live video is increasingly becoming a thing. You can already live stream on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Obviously, it's coming. It's being rolled out for LinkedIn, which will probably be quite an exciting thing for both the organisations here and many others. So the concept of storytelling. So I think most people understand that, particularly on digital channels or social channels, kind of hard direct advertising is less likely to be effective, particularly if we're talking about creating awareness, than a kind of storytelling approach. We've already spoken about the fact that stories are being integrated across all of the channels. So the way that we approach that content needs to be consistent with the way that users want to consume it, which is, we like to be told a story as opposed to being advertised to. Okay, let's move on. So when let's talk for a little while about sort of images and how we can communicate awareness and engagement to our audiences, and let's have a look at a few brands and see how they do it. So this is the sort of the Marks and Spencer's annual sort of photo shoot, and what they will do is get the sort of models in place, and each one of these models will directly relate to a customer segment that Marks and Spencer's have identified, as a potential customer. So they will look to create content that speaks to the customers, the customer groups, the customer segments that they've identified. So the kind of digital marketing 101, identify your customers, create images that appeal to them. In the case of fashion, it would be very often, I want to see what I would like to see in myself. I want to see in the images that you're going to show to me. So if we look at someone like Nike, they will, their Instagram feed and their marketing in general, it's all about inspiration and motivation and overcoming challenge and just do it. So it's every image that they push out will always be about a winner. Sometimes it will be very famous people like Mbappe, the footballer, Elliot Capucci, the famous marathon runner, but they will also have regular people and people who are less known. But you'll notice the theme will always be about inspiration and motivation. So they're very, very clear about the message and the image that they push out. And when you go and look at their Instagram channel, it will be very hard to find any post that sits outside of that. So that sort of consistency in tone of voice and message is powerful, because if we can work like that on our channels, we're more likely to engage the audiences in the way that we want to do that. Now, when we spoke about reach and engagement, when it comes to sort of tangible ways of doing that, if we're talking about something like, for example, Instagram, this is obviously an example of the potential reach of a post, like this, would be all of the followers in the network. So Nike's primary brand page has 80 million followers. So when you create a post like this one and it has 800,000 likes and 2,500 comments, the way that we typically measure engagement is obviously that's an engagement number, but the metric would be expressing that as a percentage of reach. So a typical way of talking about the engagement percentage of a post, let's use this one as an example, is add up those things. So it's 805,000 engagements on this post. If we express 800,000 as a percentage of 80 million, that's 1%. It's about just probably just over 1%. So an engagement percentage of 1% is for a profile that has 80 million followers. That's quite good. That's quite good.
I would disagree.
Why?
Like, personally, because I think a 1% engagement is this is the thing where it's like you look at the numbers, and if you see Nike has a post with 800,000 likes, you think, wow, like this is great. But then if you look at their followers, I would say that an ideal kind of engagement rate, if you had a really strong brand with consistent followers who consistently engage, I would say would be more than 15 to 20%.
Well, I think what you'll find. So we're going to look at some more brands. So that first of all, there's an inverse relationship between the amount of following and engagement rates. So meaning the bigger following you have, engagement rates will come down. So how many who's big on Instagram in the room?
In terms of followers, or you?
Well, no. Do you use it? Yeah. So when you how many followers do you have, like roughly?
500 or 600.
Okay, and when you post, how many likes do you get? Or likes and comments?
100, maybe 120.
So your engagement rate is about 25%. Now that's obviously very good, but it's not. It's like a lot of people, individual users who have a few hundred followers or even up to 1,000 followers will engage at that sort of percentage, because it's a limited. First of all, you're going to reach those people because obviously your content's going to reach them, and more than likely you're quite close to them. As you're
as well, though.
Absolutely, 100% it does.
Yeah.
And this is the key, really. So whatever, and we'll show some more examples where it's also in and around the mark we're talking about, some low and some higher, but whatever your normal engagement rate is, so you might have one post that engages at 20%, and then you might post something that engages at 40%, and then you might have some post that engages at 10%. And the trick is to understand which posts that you're posting are the most engaging. And it's going to be, the truth is, it's going to be a function of the type of message that we are communicating. Is that what our audience wants to engage with? There's other metrics like time of day, and day of the week.
I think
and
that's
things
a
like
big
that.
one as well, because the good thing with Instagram is if you keep scrolling down, it will notify you once you've already seen all of the recent posts, and that's a relatively new feature, so I guess that kind of helps increase the reach so people don't miss out on content. But I think the point with Nike, if we use that as an example of why the engagement rate as a percentage is so low, is a lot of times because like I said, the bigger the brand is, the really on the whole, the less engagement they get. But it's also the fact that these kinds of accounts are the ones that are suggested to you when you start on Instagram. So it's like people who want to follow in bulk, like 20 to 50 people at a time. You got to think that these people, they're following so many accounts that they're not just going to be going through one by one liking these posts. So that might be one of the bigger reasons why the engagement rate on the whole is very low for accounts like Nike.
Potentially, but the same. We'll come on to that in a moment. But the same rule applies. Some of these will engage at 1%. Some of them engage at 2%. Some of them engage at 0.5%. But in general, a brand like Nike, which is really taking off its Instagram, they know what their audience wants, and as we've said, they're quite consistent on the message. Now let's that's Kate Spade, but let's go to Zara first. So Zara has 28 million followers, and their typical engagement percentage. So 28 million, Nike had 80 million. So Zara has a lot of followers, but their engagement percentage is way lower than Nike's. They will average about 0.3, 0.4%. Now, the reason for me, the reason is that Zara, their approach to content and advertising strategy, their brand strategy is just not, at least as far as Instagram goes, is not as effective as Nike's, in my opinion. And the main reason for that is what Zara posts on their feed tends to be curated pictures that look like they just belong in a catalogue. And now there's everyone's going to have their opinion about what's a good social media post and what's not. And I'm definitely not an expert, but I think most people would probably agree that social media posts that are just kind of, here's a like a perfect picture of a model that belongs in a catalogue, that's less likely to be engaging. Nike are posting, as we said, it's about motivation, it's about inspiration. It's like, there are some celebrities here, but there are real people here. And Zara, for me, haven't quite got their sort of game together, which is the reason why I pulled them up here, because they've got a large following, but they engage at a pretty low percentage. Let me show you a couple of slightly smaller brands. So Kate Spade, New York, and they will employ a tactic for Instagram that a number of brands employ, which is this kind of telling the story behind the brand. And so the Instagram channel for Kate Spade New York for a long time was given to a mid-level marketing manager in the team, and they essentially said to her, look, you run the Instagram feed, but just kind of tell the story in your own way, from your own kind of eyes, about what's going on. So she will, on the way to work in the mornings in New York, she'll stop and have a coffee and talk about her breakfast and her cake that she's having at the start of the day, and put the Kate Spade product in there subtly in the background. There will be shots of photo shoots going on, but it will be behind the scenes photo shoots telling the story about what's going on in the brand. And that works quite well for this brand. They engage at a higher percentage, more like 2, 3, and 4%. The other brands that you might be familiar with is Full Raven, which is like, are you familiar with these guys? No, are any of you familiar? There's sort of a brand that's on the up, a smaller following. So originally it was a Swedish brand. It's about backpacks for school kids. So their kind of thing was school kids in Sweden were having bad backs because they were having to take a large number of books to school in the 80s. This brand started, and they designed a sort of backpack system that made it easier on younger kids' backs. And it's actually an exceptionally successful brand. I know partly because my elder daughter just begged me for a bag when she started her secondary school, for a Full Raven bag, because it's apparently the coolest thing to get, and it was good for her back. So I fell for it and bought her an expensive backpack. But the interesting thing about this brand is their Instagram feed are completely the opposite, really, to Zara. It's almost nothing. You almost never see their products in their feed. It's all about the lifestyle that their brand is underpinning. Now, clearly, my daughter's not walking up a Swedish mountain or climbing or rock climbing. It's lots of those types of photos. But the brand values that underpin this brand are all about outdoor life, beautiful mountains. You know, aren't we healthy? Isn't nature wonderful? It's all that kind of stuff. And every image that they push out on Instagram will sort of underpin that. And it's very rare for them just to put their product in the image at all, even subtly in some cases. However, it's working very well because these guys engage bigger than any of the others that we've seen. Their engagement percentage
I think that's
gets well up.
The point about as well with consistency is that when you're posting consistently, whether it's about like the lifestyles we mentioned here, or about your products, or the message from Nike where it's inspirational, is that when people scroll through the feed, you need to remember how the users interact with these platforms. And that on Instagram, people are so used to just swiping up with their thumbs to go down the feed, but as soon as they only scan the images maybe for a couple of seconds at most. But if your posts are consistent, that way people will recognize, without even looking at who's posted the post, they will recognize who that post belongs to. And I think that's a very important thing that everyone should try and target, is that when somebody is scrolling through the feed, they will recognize straight away who uploaded this post. And I think something like that will definitely help your engagement, because once they know, they'll stop. So the automatic motion of scrolling will stop in their heads, and they'll be like, wow, yeah, I know who's posted this. This is a post from Nike or this brand, and they gets more likely to engage with it. So you need to really be consistent so that you stop that kind of automatic kind of swiping motion when on a platform like Instagram. I think that's a very important thing to consider.
Good. Yeah, okay, good, excellent. And Marks and Spencer's. Okay, IGTV. Does anyone here use Instagram TV? No. So are you aware of it? Are you aware?
Yeah.
So it's about a year ago, Instagram launched IGTV. They launched it actually as a separate app. So it's another app that you need to download, but you log in with your Instagram account. And then it's about posting, so they created it so that people could post longer form videos. So I think at the moment, the maximum video that you can post on Instagram is 1 minute, is that right? On Instagram TV, you can go to 10 minutes. So essentially, this is Instagram stroke Facebook. Remember, Facebook own Instagram attempt to take a bit of the YouTube dominance of the sort of the video market. it's kind of widely sort of understood that it hasn't been particularly successful. Take-up hasn't been particularly great. Most sort of commentators seem to believe that the strategic error was making a separate app as opposed to integrating it more tightly within Instagram. Over the last couple of weeks, Instagram announced that they now surface IGTV videos inside the normal feed. So if Ross is following someone who's got an IGTV account and they post an IGTV video, it will now show up in their Instagram feeds, so you'll have access to it. It seems like that's the first step to then bringing these two accounts together. The main point is that Instagram are looking to create a place where longer form video can be brought into play. It's kind of, if you're not on it already, from a marketing perspective, I think it's a case of watch this space, because it's in development. So when we look at something like LinkedIn, so Ross, earlier on, you said something quite interesting, because you said, oh, look, we use Instagram, but obviously we're an IT support company, so when we use Instagram, it's more about posting pictures of our people. Yeah. And obviously there's a real business incentive to engaging your existing workforce, and potentially that's a way of reaching people who might want to come and join you. And so what Four Seasons will do, which is a hotel chain, US hotel chain, is that their entire LinkedIn strategy has got nothing really to do with directly selling hotels. It's got everything to do with showcasing the most amazing staff, shining a spotlight on someone who's been a great member of staff, to give them some publicity, to make them feel good, but also as a way of advertising themselves as an employer to potential employees. So if you think about it, it's quite an effective way of doing it, because LinkedIn is not a channel where you'll be particularly looking for inspiration around where to go on holiday and which hotel to go in. But if you were looking at potentially being employed by Four Seasons, that's exactly the sort of message that Four Seasons want you to get. These are our best employees, they're wonderful because of this and that. If you think you can play in the same field, then please come and apply for a job. So similarly, you said you're a B2B company. LinkedIn is where you do your advertising, but Instagram is where you can celebrate your employees. There, you would hope that employees are then sharing that content, which then allows you to reach their network, which might work as a kind of brand awareness play. It might end up working as a kind of indirect advertising play. So if you're a B2B company, don't think that there's nothing you can do on the B2C channels like Instagram and Facebook. And similarly, if you're a B2C company, don't think there's nothing you can do on a channel like LinkedIn. Unilever, which make all sorts of consumer products, a massive global company, will use LinkedIn to highlight their corporate social responsibility campaigns. So for Unilever, their LinkedIn strategy is about, communicating to the press and the wider public that they're an organisation that's doing good in the world. Okay, so I think the key points from that section really is that as organisations, we're going to be using a number of different channels and a number of different platforms. But I think what's really important is that if we can identify, based on our particular organisation, which platform lends itself to which part of my strategy. So some platforms might be very, very good for awareness. Some platforms might be very good for engagement. Some platforms might be very good for engaging my employees and potential employees. But whatever we decide to do on whichever platforms, and it's not a question of using every platform. I think we pick the ones, particularly for a smaller company, we pick 2 or 3 that are right for us, and then we're consistent with the story that we're telling on that particular platform. We stay on brand. Any questions on any of that stuff so far? So let's talk a bit about content production. So when we're producing content for all of these channels, it's kind of, it's as we've just said, we want to understand that each channel has its own purpose, and it might be that one channel is good for awareness and one channel is good for bringing people into our conversion tactic. But whatever it is we're doing, when we create a piece of content, it's really good, even if it's you're doing it on the fly, just run through this checklist. So what are we going to say? What is this bit of content, whether it's an image, a video, or a slideshow, whatever it is, what are we actually saying with this piece of content? Who are we saying it to? So most organizations will have some idea, even if it's not written down, about the different types of audiences, the different types of customer groups that they're speaking to. So who is this for? And then the why question is quite important. So why am I saying this? So if we've got a tangible answer to that question, it's good. But even if it's an intangible answer, then it's okay. So what I mean by that is, it's not going to be because I want more sales. It's a much better answer is because I want to create some awareness, or because I want someone to download my PDF. Or something else. And then the final question really is how. So that the how question is an interesting one, because this is really about the format that we're going to use. So by format, and let's go into the next slide. So the how question we can think about as format and form. And so when we talk about format, it's like, what's the format of the content? Is it a blog article? Is it a text update? If it's on Instagram, it's going to be an image with a bit of text. So most individuals and even most organizations will have kind of their go-to format that they feel most comfortable using. And so many organizations will create blogs. Which formats do typically you create at AMX or your colleagues create?
Video, image, text,
all of them, yeah, good. Okay, excellent. And Ross?
Probably the most images. We always put a post with an image, or at least like a link back to our blogs, because it has the big image on it and also links back.
Excellent, yeah. So image with a link back to the post. So your why there is you want them to engage on the post.
Yeah. And the blog gets them back to our website as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're driving traffic to your website. Excellent. And then the form thing's the interesting one. This is like, what form does your blog post take? Is it a bit of research? Is it an opinion on an event? Is it a story? Is it advice, DIY advice? And again, what you'll probably find is most organizations will kind of stick to one or two of these. But when you're looking at creating a piece of content, if you can, answer the format question, sounds like both of you run a bunch of different formats, and then the form question, it will give form to your approach to curating and creating that piece of content, and it just provides a bit of structure. Okay, so we've got a little short exercise. So what I would like you to do is, based on your business, just give yourselves, let's go around the room and let's just give yourselves a task of what channel would you use and what piece of content would you produce, answering these questions really. What are you going to say, to who, why, and how? And what tactics would you employ to help them take that action? So if I go first, then what I would say is our business is MintTwist. We are a digital marketing agency, and the channels that we use from a social media marketing perspective LinkedIn and Twitter, much like the people in the room. We use Facebook and Instagram also to engage our existing staff members, our past staff members, interns who've been with us, and we find that Facebook and Instagram work very well for that. For Twitter, we tend to do two types of pieces of content. Either we share or three types rather. Either we share our blog articles with a small bit of commentary with a link back, or we have opinion pieces. So, have you heard about this? What we think it's great. Link to someone else's content, or occasionally, and we should do it more, is engage with existing other people in our network that we believe we can add value to their conversations. On LinkedIn, we will post also our blog content, but that's where we will promote our workshops and ask people to come and join our workshops, and ask people going forward to join live streams on the workshops. And the formats that we would use would be, as we said, images, blogs, and increasingly now video, and video in particular on the LinkedIn channel. The fourth channel that we will use is YouTube. But the interesting thing for us from YouTube is YouTube's very much about at the moment about hosting the content and facilitating the videos being up there in long form and facilitating live streaming. So we're not at the moment actively promoting on YouTube. So YouTube's like a functional social channel for us, and the active promotions happen on Twitter and LinkedIn. Is there any one of you
Smiling
up? So what do you think, Ross? Are there any ideas that you could take away from this, and things that you might do differently or add to what you're doing?
I think it's just about continuing what we're doing and probably putting out more content, which we are trying to do. I think for us, the most important platform is probably LinkedIn, purely based on the connections that we've got, and a lot of them are customers, potentially prospects, and other people in the industry. So it's good to just get more kind of stuff out there that promotes us. And sometimes it's not even stuff that is about us. It's just like a leading question that we just get people talking, and it's quite nice. And then they'll try and remember us, and they might think, "Oh, I saw somebody on LinkedIn about that." And that's what we try to do as well. It's not always just about us and trying to get new leads and things like that. It's just putting our name out there a bit.
That's good.
So that's what we're going to try and do. We're kind of at the early stages of everything. We're still trying to figure out what's best for us as well. But yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's key, isn't it? It's like you want to experiment, you want to be proactive, but if you can, at some stage hang some sort of strategy together, then it should feel like you're moving in the right direction. Like that.
For me, it's about like the consistency part of it.
Yeah.
And to make sure like all the channels are properly integrated. To make sure like everything is reflecting into another one, and you can properly follow up people in different channels.
Yeah.
And all support the channel.
Yeah. I think that's a very good point. Very good point. It's more medicine.
Yeah.
Agreed.
No, I think. I mean, if it's down to me and the platforms that I'm more active on, I'd say it's more Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And YouTube's something that I've been like most active on, but recently not so much, as kind of like the work that I do revolves around other people's YouTube channels, not really myself. But I think Twitter's been a very good platform for me personally to kind of increase my network and increase my kind of authority in certain areas, and it's been a way for me to kind of facilitate information, and I think that's the primary attribute of kind of getting me to the point where I want to be in terms of industry. Also, LinkedIn is another one that, based on my experience with video, that's something that kind of really helps you shine on LinkedIn. So that's like a recommendation from me, is like uploading natively on LinkedIn is something that works really well in terms of getting your connections aware of what you do, but also like we talked about before about how these can spread with engagement that you get on your post, and it's also a really good way of connecting with other people who have an interest in what you do, and it's a very good way to kind of expand your reach. But I mean, Facebook not so much. I think Facebook for me personally is more, if I use it, I'd be using it within groups, and that's the nice thing about Facebook, because Facebook groups are the most active, I guess, platform that incorporates groups. So that can be really nice to kind of join very niche groups, also about what your business does. You can freely join a group, and then you can connect with more people who share these similar interests. But yeah, I'd say for me, number one at the moment is Twitter. Actually.
Yeah, it's about finding the channel that works for you. Absolutely. Okay, we've got some more slides here, but we're a bit limited on time. So what I'm going to do is jog through these last slides, and then we'll sort of wrap up with any closing questions. But before I move on, are there any questions? So when we talk about advertising, so using the social media tools from an advertising perspective, it's kind of the same thing. So what are we saying? Who are we saying it to? Why and how? To what format? Let's just talk you through an example. So this is one of our clients is City University of London, and they've got a campaign called This Is City, and the campaign's underpinned by this very nice approach to how they do most of their awareness marketing. So it will always be their advertising, when it's following this approach, which it very often does, will always be focused on a person. So the person, as we said, would be representative of one of the customer segments that they look at. And as we said, lots of organisations will have many different customer segments. They have many different ones. The setting would be the physical place in which the ad is placed, and then the impact is what's the combination of this person in this setting, what's the result, and what's the positive result, which is what advertising is sort of talking about. And so to put some meat on the bone about what that means is, so this individual here, we've given this persona the name of Connor. He's a society advancer, and there's a sort of a description that underpins this particular target customer group. He's there, we can see the image, he's got a stethoscope on, so he's training to be a doctor or a health professional. He's in the university, and the impact is that he's feeling the passion to make a difference. So the This Is City campaign, this is our passion, our passion to make a difference, helping you to make one too. So when people who fit the target demographic, target customer segment of Connor engage with this ad, we hope that that's going to resonate to that target customer, and we hope that they're going to take the action that we want them to take, which in this case is book a place on a university open day. This is another example. Fatima is a customer segment called Natural Next Stepper. This is Fatima, who's very focused on her career over the longer term, and the setting is Central London. She's seeing herself in Central London progressing her career. We hope that she'll take the next step. So, very much using the model that we were talking about for creating organic content, it's a very similar approach. Obviously, the key thing is we're looking for a call to action when we're advertising. So the call to action, as we said, is book your place. And if we can have some kind of approach to create some kind of brand guidelines that underpin our approach to answering those questions about what, who, why, how, then we can embed that consistency that we were talking about. Okay, so let's just, as I said, relatively quickly just talk around the channel. So YouTube advertising, very broadly speaking, there's two ways to advertise. One is in-stream advertising. So these are the ads that you go on YouTube, and this in the bottom right-hand corner, and after 5 seconds, typically you can skip it. I think I'm correct in saying that as an advertiser, if you're running in-stream ads, the way that those ads are placed, the videos on which they would be placed, would be set by us as advertisers. So we would say this video is about running shoes, so the ads should appear on any video that's about running. Am I broadly correct?
I feel like this would be a more kind of recent development with advertisers kind of getting a choice to be more kind of specific about the types of content that their videos, that their ads are showing, because there's been a bit of controversy about some advertisers claiming that their videos are shown, their ads are shown on videos that aren't so relevant, and this is it's quite a big issue for advertisers, because what that would mean is that they're not going to get clicks because the ad's not relevant to the video, and also they're spending money at the same time, so it's kind of like they're just wasting their money. So I feel like there will be very soon better ways for advertisers on YouTube to kind of very specifically identify the types of video content they want their videos to show onto. But obviously, I mean, they can't just put in the URLs of the exact video that they want their ads to show on. So it's a tricky one with YouTube, because you need to understand that there's so many videos on YouTube, and as an advertiser, you really want your ads to be shown to the most relevant audience. And the most relevant audience, that's also a separate thing in itself, because the ad's been shown on the video. It's not actually being directed specifically to the person who may be interested in your business. It's to the people who are interested in that channel's videos. So it's quite a.
I think that's right.
area.
That's the key point you made there. Although the advertising is targeted in the sense that it's going to be associated with the right topic, it is disruptive in the sense that we, any of us as the user, have clicked on a video that we want to watch, and now we're presented with a disruptive ad. And most often times, people will click through that ad after the 5 seconds and not watch it. So this particular format, in-stream advertising, the percentage of people that watch an ad beyond 30 seconds is incredibly low, because the vast majority of people click through straight away.
And there's more ads, because now YouTube sometimes have 2 in-stream ads on one video as well. So you get the prompt to skip ads, as in plural, because there would be one and then after another one. And if you're in that second position, I'd say there's maybe even like a 1% chance that somebody would actually go through the first ad.
The interesting thing is though, and from a brand awareness perspective, it's potentially even a benefit, is that you're not actually charged for the view until the user watches the 30 seconds. So if you're smart, if you can get your key message, brand message out in 5 seconds, and then the subsequent key messages in the first 29 seconds, you have the potential to get free brand awareness. You would pay for the people who go beyond that. So in-stream advertising, although the engagement rates are relatively low, it's not something that should be dismissed for the reasons that we just mentioned. And obviously, it's kind of like what we were saying about the content. If you create the right content, people are more likely to engage with it. If you're telling an interesting story as opposed to direct advertising, you're more likely to get engagement. The discovery ads that are the ones that appear on the top right. So a bit like the way Google search works. If I type in a search term and I choose to connect my ads with those types of search terms, I could be presented alongside the top ranking organic videos for that search term. So that type of click-throughs onto that type of advertising, discovery advertising, are higher than the in-stream advertising, because we're more likely to be answering a question. So look, all of the targeting options that you can imagine would be available. So you can target based on the viewers. You can obviously target based on the YouTube channels that viewers are watching, on the videos that they're watching. And as we said, the keywords that are entered into the search. This is a screenshot of the admin system for YouTube's. YouTube is integrated into a platform called Google Ads, which is where it's all controlled. Okay, we can use Gmail advertising, is potentially quite interesting. If we're using Gmail as consumers, then obviously we're using that platform for free. So as always, if we're not paying for the product, kind of we are the product. So to a certain extent, the AI is understanding about us and the sorts of life events that we might be engaging based on what we're writing in our emails, which might be a bit disconcerting from a consumer perspective, but from an advertiser's perspective, it's quite interesting because you've got the ability to target people based on this life event triggers. So if you're going to have a baby, or if your child is going to start school, or if you're going to get married, or if you're moving country, these are the types of life events that can be that advertisers can use to send targeted email to Gmail users, and that shows up on the sponsored tabs for those of you. Do either of you use Gmail? Anyone use Gmail? Do you engage with the ads at all? So it has to be a good offer. It has to be a good offer and relevant. Okay, LinkedIn advertising. I think we all kind of understand. Typically, you would have the image or video ads, or slideshow or carousel ads, and they would appear in the newsfeed. So as I'm moving down my newsfeed, I can engage with LinkedIn users based on this type of ad. We've also got in-mail ads, so you can run kind of an in-mail campaign, which is obviously LinkedIn's integrated messaging system. And then you've got lead gen ads, so you can have an ad, an image or video ad that appears in the feed, but instead of clicking through and going onto a landing page on a website, you can pop up a lead gen form, which would be pre-populated with the user's LinkedIn details, email address, phone number, and when we press submit, that data is sent directly to the advertiser. So lead gen forms are potentially quite interesting because, and the reason why they're potentially interesting, a user is probably more likely when they're in the LinkedIn environment to complete a form that's presented to them from within LinkedIn natively, rather than being sent to a landing page on a third-party website completing a form over there. So for some users, for some advertisers, it works. Twitter, we've got promoted tweets. There are also leads gen forms that can be integrated inside Twitter in exactly the same way as I've just described that works in LinkedIn. Lastly, let's just finish up on Facebook. We've got 1 more minute. So, there's quite a large number of ad formats, and this is certainly not all of them, but some of the main ones are carousel. So the interesting thing about carousel is it's obviously you're motivated to move your finger when you're on a mobile device and push through a number of images. So the idea with carousel, as ad formats go, we're trying to create engagement with our user, and physically touching our brand on the screen is part of what carousel's trying to nurture. So carousel is obviously a series of images, and we want those images to kind of tell a story. So it might be, part 1, part 2, part 3, as opposed to just 3 images that are kind of essentially static images that may as well be by themselves. If we're going to use carousel, we want to kind of tell a story, and it might be revealing the picture. You have to pull along to reveal the rest of the picture, or it might be, my product in winter, summer, spring, autumn. Something like that type of idea is what you're looking to achieve with the carousel. Single images, if we're looking for click-throughs from a Facebook advertising campaign, these work, amongst the best performing formats. So single image, direct call to action, click this link, go to the landing page. Video, we said with YouTube as well, it's not really about generating click-throughs, it's more around getting an awareness message across. We haven't sort of talked about it directly, but remarketing and retargeting, both of you are familiar with familiar with that. So we can show an audience set a video, and then we can say, of all of the people who watched 50% of that video, now retarget them with this image ad that's going to invite them to an event. So video ads inside Facebook, much like sort of YouTube, would probably be top of the funnel awareness marketing, and we would use that to curate an audience, an engaged audience that we would send a follow-up ad to. And slideshow, which is a series of pictures that presents as a video. So yeah, as we said, the image ads work well at the bottom of the funnel. Carousel is about engagement, and video ads is about awareness. And we can integrate all of our ads channels into analytics, which will give us exceptionally good data. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the workshop. So do we have any questions?
I'm just asking on that, Joe. But if you guys have questions, feel free to ask.
So do you think there's some things you can take back to your respective businesses?
I think the reporting bit's important as well, because it's all very well doing all of this, but you need to work out who is reaching, what's happening, and if it's worth your time. You can put a lot of investment into a campaign on LinkedIn and promoting it and everything. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So
it's a really good point, Ross. So we didn't talk hugely about it. Obviously, within the ad management tools themselves, there's quite a lot of reporting. But the key really is if you've got goals set up inside Google Analytics, and you can understand from this campaign what's the most relevant goal that I'm looking to achieve, and what percentage of visitors, that's the best way to do that. Because if you just look in the ads platforms themselves, it's great, and it will give you the cost per click, and it will give you how many views, and it will give you how many clicks, but by itself it's not as useful as understanding what they actually did. Is that something you're doing?
Yeah, not us in-house, but we've definitely got the reporting tools set up.
Right, good.
We've got a question from Menzies, and they're saying we see a lot of haters on LinkedIn saying that it's become too much like Facebook. So what's your opinion on the changes LinkedIn have made to make the platform more social-led and less profile-led?
You know what? I agree with Menzies. There do seem to be some LinkedIn users who are really pushing back against. I guess what the haters don't like is the idea of celebrity culture, like Kim Kardashian type thing, going on LinkedIn. And to some extent, sort of, I understand that. But what I would say to the haters is, if you don't like the content, just don't look at it, and then the algorithm won't serve it to you. So, and what I would say to Menzies, and actually any marketer, is that it doesn't really matter if you're a B2C brand or a B2B brand. I think that if we're professionals working inside brands, we've got a responsibility to ourselves to build up a personal brand, particularly if we're in any way customer facing. And that should benefit our business brands. And I think that LinkedIn, at the end of the day, LinkedIn and the business world in general, people buy from people at the end of the day. People buy from people, and people want to hear stories from people. And the best type of marketing is people telling stories that are grounded in reality. Those are the best types of stories. And I think what better way than to have people represent your brand on a platform like LinkedIn. There are always going to be haters in the world, but let's just concentrate on the lovers, I would say.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think adding to that as well is I don't really think it's solely limited to LinkedIn. There's haters everywhere in all aspects of society, in every platform, YouTube, Twitter, whatever. But I think the point is that people need to address, in the instance of LinkedIn, is that they need to be aware that things change and platforms change, and it's all about the evolution of technology. And at the end of the day, I think it's more about pleasing the users. So whilst people may feel like it's still considered to be a professional social networking platform that you should only be professional with, But if it was like that, then all you'd see is just posts from recruiters, and there wouldn't really be anything so vibrant about it. So I feel like it's really good to have a mix of different content. And like you said, if you don't like it, you can just kind of mute or hide the activity from whoever shared it and kind of move on. It shouldn't be a thing that you need to dwell on.
Yeah,
I think.
I suppose a more broader sort of answer, dealing with negative feedback on social media. There's different types, isn't there? Because sometimes if you're, for example, a hotel chain or something like that, and someone's leaving a negative comment that's kind of grounded in reality, if they've had a negative experience, then that's slightly different. That's something that, as marketeers, people involved in all that, we should address. We should address directly that complaint, and if relevant, apologise and recompense. But it's if we're talking about haters for haters' sake, then I would say that's a conversation we don't need to engage in. And if that's a persistent problem, then we should block them out of our network. I certainly don't think we should change our approach to kind of proactive people-led marketing on a channel like LinkedIn, because I think that's the right way to go.
All right.
Okay, look, cool. Thanks so much for coming along. The slides, we'll email the slides to you. They're actually on the link up there as well. I've put them on this elliottking.com/MintTwist. You can download these slides. Obviously, we're at your service to answer any questions you want at all, anytime. It's a massive pleasure to meet with you both. And if there aren't any questions, we'll leave it there. All right.
Thank you.
Pleasure. My pleasure. And goodbye to everyone on the live stream, which we will shut down now. We'll see you at the next MintTwist workshop, which is in about 2 weeks to tomorrow. Is that right?
Yeah, it should be in a few weeks. Yeah. On minttwist.com/events, there's all the upcoming workshops.
minttwist.com/events, and the YouTube channel. The live streams are on there. So if the two of you fancy, or if any of your colleagues fancy joining, we're going to live stream these events going forward. And obviously they stay up on the YouTube channel, available to watch in replay. Okay, bye-bye. Stop recording.